So welcome to the launch of our national toolkit and welcome to the Festival of Co-Production Learning Stronger Together. And if you were at our launch this morning, you will already have met me. I'm Vicky O'Donoghue and I'm the project lead for the National Ageing Better Co-Production Project on behalf of all of the Ageing Better partners across the network. And in the room this morning, we have Andy from If Collective, who is our design team and who has put together the design and built this toolkit for us. And we have Claire Chivers, who's in two different roles within this festival. So Claire is one of our Ageing Better partners in Bristol Ageing Better, who has been part of this process right from the beginning, but she's also been doing lots of work with us on a freelance basis to help us to get all the content together for the toolkit. So she's going to talk you around some of the resource functionality today and some of the content in the toolkit, and Andy in a moment will actually reveal the toolkit itself to you. So we were working on this till late last night to get it into a place where we could share it with you interactively today. But just to highlight that this is very much a demo. This is very much about us showing you our toolkit, showing you what we are wanting to launch and make available to anybody that is interested in co-production, wherever you are on that journey and from whatever perspective you're coming from. And after the festival, we will be sharing the live link with you so you can start using that, promoting it, sharing it with others. We've got a media campaign around that as well. And the link will be made available through lots of different websites across our partnership. So yes, so today's just a sneak peek. It's a kind of have a look at it, understand what it is, because we've been talking about this for so long now, and how you might be able to use it. And then there'll be other ways that you can interact with that later on in the festival to give us your thoughts and to maybe look further into that toolkit and start playing around with it, which I'll talk to you a little bit about in a moment. But just to give you the backstory, so the brief was when I started my role, we want you to work with as many of the Ageing Better partners as possible on behalf of the 14 partners across the programme and help them to share their co-production learning. And we'd like you to do that through maybe writing a few blogs, maybe coming up with a bit of a toolkit. Let's have a few webinars and let's have 1 or 2 learning events. What we've actually come up with is far different from that initial brief. The engagement from the partnership was just phenomenal. So we had so many people wanting to get involved, so many different ideas, so much to share that has just grown arms and legs. And yeah, we're so overwhelmed with what we've actually achieved in 15 months. So now, you know, a one-day learning event is a 53 event virtual festival across 3 weeks. We did a 10-part webinar program to introduce the festival. Yes, we still did some blogging around co-production in a crisis, specifically around the pandemic. And the toolkit is what we're going to show you today. So it's something very different to just a short PDF document with a few links, as you'll find out in a moment. So I'm going to hand you over to Andy now, who's going to just talk you through the PDF part of the toolkit and guide you through.
Thanks, Vicky. Hi everyone, I'm Andy. So when Vicky and team came to us a few months ago, you know, they were really clear that they've got all this information about co-production, about Ageing Better, and what we needed to do was work out how could we possibly tell those stories with the utmost of integrity, but also make it relevant to the most amount of people and grant access to the most amount of people. I think it's fair to say the original idea was to do a single PDF sort of storytelling document where we would be telling stories on behalf of all the partners. And then after doing a good deal of thinking about it, we realised actually it'd be better because of the amount of information that we had. rather than to try and tell those stories on behalf of all our partners, we should really play host to those stories. And that forced us to think about the format of the toolkit itself. So we moved away from this single document, which would have been absolutely huge to read, download, look at. Really overwhelming potentially for anyone who was interested in co-production. And we moved towards introducing a space on the web that had all the information that people needed inside it, and we would just help people find the information they need. So we devised this way where we would introduce that information via a PDF. We'd say, this is what co-production's about, this is what Aging Better's about, and here's a toolkit full of fantastic resources that you as an individual or organisation can use to further your inquiry. So if I'm just going to go off screen to preserve my Wi-Fi connection, and I'm going to share the prototype of the PDF with you and then walk you through how it goes. And then after that, I'll hand over to Claire, who'll show you how the insides of the toolkit work for those people that want to further their inquiry and explore more. Okay, here goes. Just give me a thumbs up, a few people, just to make sure that you can see this. Yeah. Okay, so here we have the introduction to the toolkit. And the toolkit itself is it's very open, it's very welcoming. The crux of the toolkit is that it explains, as I've mentioned, what co-production is, who Aging Better are, and it introduces the toolkit itself. So about co-production, we have to assume that not everybody knows what this is. And we go through and we explain in very simple, tangible terms what co-production is, principles behind co-production, of the people, for the people, based on real life experience, and with a continual loop of feedback, always intending to improve the outcomes. As we explain these concepts, we've got links out. This link is to our rather lovely funder, who have got a supporting document which adds more context to the things that have been spoken about in the PDF itself with regards to what co-production is. We talk about the core principles of co-production: collaboration, diversity, respect, empowerment and involvement. We ladder through those and we refer to some of our key partners, in this instance Co-Production Collective's expertise around those principles, and indeed the NIHR's 6 key principles of co-production. We break it up with little sound bites to help people really capture the essence of what co-production is about. And we ask the questions, why use co-production? Why should I use co-production? Why not something else? Well, for these reasons, it benefits the individuals, professionals, and the services that are a product of the process. Having talked about co-production, which is very theoretical to a large extent while we're looking at that first section of the toolkit, we then move to Aging Better to help people understand how co-production can have such a fantastic set of outcomes on a given user group. And we use, obviously, Aging Better as the program to illustrate that. We explain where Aging Better comes from. We give a brief synopsis of the aims of the project, the way that the project was run, and why it used co-production. Again, we link out to reports of further inquiry for those that want to know more. And then we begin to move away from the theory and towards human experience, and we start explaining Age Better, or co-production through the vehicle of Age Better, with more humanity. We show what the impact is in real terms to real people. And then we talk about who we are as Aging Better. It's all of us across England and the UK, all with a common purpose: to come together to help people feel less isolated, to become more involved, to engage in the actual design of the services that they're involved in, and ultimately to be recognised for their contributions. That contribution obviously brings ownership to any type of service design. And we confirm that ethos by explaining what's at the heart of Aging Better. And we also help people accessing this toolkit appreciate the scope, the breadth, the impact, and the reach of Aging Better, and how that was exaggerated, or at least helped, by the co-production method. And we talk about outcomes and the positive impacts it's had on the people that Aging Better have reached and engaged with. So up to this point, what we've done is we've given a very easy to understand overview of what co-production is, and we've also given up the ability for users of the toolkit to go and explore further and interrogate further about co-production. We've then explained who Aging Better are and how they used co-production to be such a successful programme, but to also, really importantly, show the impact on people of those methods. And at that point, we think we should have a good appreciation from any user of the toolkit, whether they are a committee person down at the local allotment or a civil servant in Whitehall. Everyone should be sort of thinking in the same way. And that gives us the ability then to introduce the toolkit, which, as Vicky alluded to earlier, isn't necessarily as straightforward as we anticipated at the beginning of the project, because we wanted to be able to tell the stories with the utmost of integrity, and we wanted to honour our partners and their expertise and their knowledge. So the idea we came up with, as I mentioned just briefly before, is that we'd come up with a complete guide to co-production, essentially. Inside the toolkit, everyone who took part in Aging Better is represented. They all tell their co-production story. We make the toolkit as user-centered, as open source. Absolutely anyone in the country can access this if they have the link to it. It's completely free, and all that knowledge is, at the user's disposal. So no matter who you are and what your project is, you should find something really useful inside the toolkit to help your co-production rollout. And as I mentioned just then, it's fully accessible and it's full of goodies. It's particularly useful if you are, so this page in particular, we want to make sure that everybody feels welcome to the toolkit and everyone thinks it's for them. As long as you're interested in co-producing, this toolkit's for you. We then tee up the resources that are inside the toolkit, where they're from, what formats they're in. And we also give a little bit of guidance on how to use the toolkit. So here, this is the crux of it. This PDF is basically a gateway to a giant repository of knowledge and information, from tools, stories, how-tos, knowledge shares. We've got videos, we've got text documents, we've got templates. Anything you could possibly need, depending on your level of interest, is inside the toolkit. And we've also developed a glossary of terms. Big thanks to Claire from Bristol for helping us with that. So it really is a giant repository, and this PDF itself is just designed to help guide people towards the things that they're interested in or things that relate to potentially their project. And that's when we introduce the themes. With each theme, there is a story or stories told by partners and the people that they've worked alongside to deliver services. So here we've got theme 1, creating a co-production culture. We tell the story of Ageing Better Camden and how they hooked in with Age UK Camden to deliver and design their services. We also give a coining phrase about, you know, what creating a co-production culture is, and we offer further inquiry to the user, who can hit the link and it takes them into the toolkit theme of creating a co-production culture. And as you can see, there are resources, stories and tools. I won't go much further than that because Claire will give us a demo of how that works. And then as you can see, we move through. Each theme has got a topic related to co-production. It talks about the challenges and how those challenges were met. It shows who was involved. It coins the essence of that theme, and it invites the user to go forward and explore more and get resources, information, tools and knowledge for their projects. That's repeated across the 12 themes. It's a standard format, but hopefully that bodes well for the user as they get used to the shape of the toolkit and the introductions to the various topics. So we sync right through. What we're doing at the same time is exposing the depth and breadth and the variety of the activity that's taken place within the Ageing Better programme, and also the role of the National Lottery Community Fund in supporting that to happen. So I'll go through the themes. There are 12 of them, all following the same format, which is easy for the user to digest and go and find out more. All the time, it's peppered with images from across the different regions of users and how they've come together under the different services they've helped to design and deliver. And then right at the end here, we have the co-production glossary, which we think is really important for anybody who's just setting out in understanding co-production and wanting to use it in their projects. But equally, it's a good reminder to anybody who's well versed that this is the arena, these are the phrases that we use, and it should bode well for anybody who comes across resources where any of these phrases appear. Thanks again to Claire for providing this. And as we get towards the end, we felt it was important because we've kind of lived the co-production experience while we've produced this toolkit. Everybody who's contributed to it has brought a level of expertise, and as I mentioned at the beginning, our job was just to really act as a gateway to that information, and that's what this introductory PDF's about. The credits show all the partners who've contributed. Importantly, we've linked out to the lead organisations behind each of those partner Ageing Better groups, because we know that those organisations are likely to persist into the future and provide useful touch points for people who are practicing co-production long after the official Ageing Better programme comes to a close. And then finally, we thank some of the experts that have contributed to the toolkit, mostly to demonstrate that we're practicing what we preach, whether it's me as part of If Collective, or the Co-Production Collective and Co-Create, who are experts, practitioners in co-production and delivery, or the people that make it happen. We feel it's right to do that and end on what potentially is the most important thing. We thank the people that are going to use this toolkit and the expertise that we want to share with them to have impact in other spaces outside of Ageing Better's remit, because ideally if there's a perfect legacy for Ageing Better, it's not just the impact it's had on the communities and the people that have taken part and the longevity of those those impacts, but it's the idea that the methodology, the co-production, lives on in other projects, and they can learn from our experience. So that is the introduction to the toolkit. I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment and turn my video back on. What we really wanted to do is make it as easy to use as possible, and that's what the intro PDF is all about. And then the real fun happens for anybody who is interested in co-production. Once they've found the thing that they're really interested in, whatever theme that might be, they can go in and interrogate, find out more, and use all that knowledge and expertise from the Aging Better partners to fuel their programme and hopefully do good things. So I think Claire's now going to show you what happens inside the toolkit and the way that we structured the toolkit to make it easy for people to access and use. Over to you, Claire.
Thank you, Andy. Yeah, I'm just going to give you an example really of all of the resources that sit behind the toolkit. So I'll just share my screen and I can give you this example. So hopefully you can see that. As Andy said, there's so many resources available in connection with this toolkit, and we've ordered them into the 12 main themes. So Andy's already shown you how we're structured in the toolkit. So using theme 2 as an example, every theme has a sort of white box that you can that shows you how to click through to access those further resources. So if I just do that now, I'll open it in a new tab and show you, this is what it would look like once you click through to that theme. So I've chosen the theme Community Development in Microfunding, which is Bristol and Birmingham. We contributed our learning to this theme. Every theme has a contents page, which is a really useful starting point to give you an idea of what's all of the resources that are in that folder for that theme. So for example, you can see here, we split the resources up into a resources section, a stories section and a tools section. So you can see here that Bristol and Birmingham created resources specifically for this toolkit. So for example, some for funders, some for individuals and community groups, some case studies, some further reading. But beyond the resources we created specifically for this toolkit, we've also got absolutely loads from all of the Aging Better programmes of other learning reports, videos, podcasts, infographics that will be useful for you that connect to this theme. So that's the contents page. I'll just close that. And then once you sort of know where you want to look, you can either go directly to a resource that you want to access, or you can have a bit of a browse. So if we go into the resources folder for this theme, here are all the many resources just for this one. And you can see in this view, you can get a bit of a snippet of what each one looks like, which is fairly helpful, especially if you've accessed it before and you're looking for something quite specific that you want to dip into. But you can also change your view to a list view if you want to then read fully exactly kind of what's available in the toolkit. So here you can see we've got a bit more information about the structure of it, information about co-production in microfunding, resources for different groups, and different evaluation reports, a real whole host really. So for example, if we click on a resources for funders document, just as an example, you can see here that it's got a whole host of sort of learning and tips and information about co-production in microfunding, and in this case specifically for funders, because that's the document that we've clicked on. So there's absolutely loads, and as I say, some of the other themes have there's videos available here as well, and there's audio, podcast, things like that. And any of them you can, once it's all available, you can just go in, have a browse, but also download if you want and keep them, share them in your own way. There's a stories folder, and got various tools as here as well. So for example, Birmingham have got a top tips for their top tips for sort of setting up a group and making that a successful activity. So anything in the toolkit you can just access for free and download yourself. So I'll just stop the share for that. And hopefully that theme has just given you a bit of an insight into what it looks like behind the main PDF.
Thank you so much to both of you for taking us through that. It's the first time I've actually seen it in that way, working in interactively between the links. Obviously I've seen it at different stages in various forms, so it's fabulous to see it. Thank you so much. So just to reiterate that this is a demo. This isn't a live link that we're sharing with you at this moment in time. We have still got some tucks to make behind the scenes. But what we will be sharing with you in different ways is opportunities to interact with it, have opportunity to maybe share your feedback and talk to us about how you might use the toolkit. Obviously, we want you to use this toolkit and be able to use this toolkit and take this learning forward and make it your own. So just wanted to pinpoint a couple of ways in which you can do that. Come along to the Gather Town session on Friday if you're not already signed up to that. I talked about it this morning at the launch, but it's a fabulous way of coming together in a virtual space to interact with each other, and there will be a link to the toolkit in there, so you can go in, play with it, put your information in there about how you might like to use it. We've also got the Network and Natter session on Thursday, where we'll have opportunity to talk around the toolkit as well. And we will be sending out an evaluation at the end of the festival, where again you can give us your sort of feedback on how you might like to use the toolkit and how you might like to share it. And I know that obviously evaluation forms can be a little bit of a pain to fill in, but just to say that it would be so valuable if everyone could complete that evaluation form post festival. We'll only ask you to complete one evaluation at the end of each week of the festival, so but there'll be opportunity on that evaluation to tell us about your thoughts around the toolkit as well. So yeah, we're not really kind of opening up for questions today. It was just initially to show it to you, reveal it, and thank you for all your comments that are coming in as well. Really do appreciate that on first view you can see that it's a really useful resource that can be used. And Jenny or Imogen, Imogen, you're sharing the links in there for people for those sessions that I've just talked about, where you can go up and sign up. There's still spaces on those sessions. So yeah, this is very much a festival of dipping in and out, coming to different sessions, but I would say they are the key ones to network with us and to interact with us around the toolkit for sure. So if the toolkit's of interest to you, please try and come to those. So thank you both for doing such a great job of demonstrating that. And there's lots of other sessions across the festival. If colleagues want to come along, there's still spaces on those sessions. So thanks all very much for coming along, and I may see you at another session later on.